Hello and welcome to this quick tutorial in transferring our current knowledge of using Arduinos over to ESPs. Now I've mentioned, I think in a previous video, I do tend to use ESPs quite a lot, and let's take a look why. I can get a 10 pack for $22.99, which obviously makes them sort of $2.29 each. So if you let the magic smoke out, it's not too expensive to replace, whereas Arduinos tend to come in a little bit more expensive. Also, these work out quite physically a lot smaller. So the main thing is the code is pretty much identical. All we've got to do is make a few changes in our Arduino IDE. So if I just come over to this, I'm going to go on to File, Preferences. Now if we look down here, Additional Boards Manager, this is the first we've got to do. Now I've already got this copied across into there, which tells it's going to be the ESP8266 boards, which are the ones I showed you the picture of, but I'm also putting the ESP32 in there. Now these are the links we'll need, and I will make sure they are in the comments below. So what we've got to do is copy and paste it into that window and press OK. Press OK. The next step we need to do is go on to Tools, Board, where for you it might say Arduino Uno. I'm going to go on Board Manager. I'm just going to wait for this to finish downloading. I'm then just going to type in ESP. It'll then find the ESP libraries. So I've got the ESP32 boards, so I could install there, but I've already got this one just there, so I'm happy with that. ESP32 installed, and I also need this one, ESP8266, installed. I think it's possibly the latest version. If not, nope, that's not the latest version. I'm going to leave it for now, but I will update this later on. So now I've got the right boards installed. So the next step is to go onto the board itself. We should have now this little menu. I'm going to come down here. I'm just going to choose this D1R2 Mini. I've not tested all the others, but this one does work for the board I've got attached. Okay, so what we've got now is, if I just turn my little webcam on, we can see I've got a tiny little ESP board. I've got an LED flashing. I've got a capacitor hooked up to the board. You don't need that, but it can just help create the your ESP to be a little bit more stable. But let's have a quick look at what I've wired. So if I just go into my wiring diagram, I've got this ESP. Don't worry about this software right now, I will do a tutorial on this later on. So I've got an ESP D1 Mini ready to go. I've got a resistor. I'm going to hook this up to D2. I'm going to put the resistor, sorry, the LED, hook them up, and I'm just going to loop this back to ground. So that's all I've done on the breadboard of the light you can see flashing. Oops, cancel that. So that's all I've done on this board you can now see. Okay, yes, so the capacitor, by the way, is just going between 3 volts and ground. So again, there's nothing too alarming there, but I'll leave that for the moment. So now we're back in our code. So the first thing we're going to do is set up the code itself. Now, if you've opened up the Blink tutorial, it would start something like this, with pin mode, LED built-in output. Now the ESP, as we can see, does not have an LED built into it, so we can't use that. An LED built-in is just a defined variable in the Arduino library, but we're no longer using the Arduino, we're now using the ESP library. So I need to change that to simply D2, which is what you should have seen just there. I hooked this up to D2. All D2 is a variable linking it to the actual GPIO, the general purpose input output pin number 4. It gets a bit confusing, but you do soon get used to it, and basically have maybe the specification on standby if necessary. So I've got pin mode D2 as an output. So to save you me copying save me typing it in front of you all, I'm just going to change this. So again, I can go D2, D2. So let's have a look how fast is that flash at the moment. It's about every half second, so when I run this it should slow it down a little bit. So if I just upload, yep, I'm going to save that, so I'm just going to go ESP blink test. I think I just spelled that wrong, don't think it really matters. Press save, it should now start to save it and then compile it. There we go. We can now see that it has copied it across, it's reset. The main thing with the capacitor is sometimes the reset doesn't actually work without the capacitor. But for the most part, when it's plugged to the USB, it's just fine. So we can now see it is taking that 1 second on, 1 second off. If I want to speed that up just to show that it is working properly, I'll just take that away. So it's now just going to be a 1/10 of a second. There we go. We can now see it's flashing 10 times a second. So from here on in, you can use pretty much everything I've shown you so far. So from the servos to piezo buzzers, sequence of LEDs, they should all work in exactly the same way. The main thing to be aware of, as we can see, we've got these different pins from D0 down to D8, is some of these work as inputs, some as outputs. So you can see, if we just went to light up LEDs, D1 right through to D8 should be absolutely fine. Again, stay away from the TX. Whereas for inputs, it all depends what you've got connected to them, but we'll go over those as we need to. Okay, so again, maybe go and get a set of these if you want to follow along with the upcoming projects, because nearly everything I do from this point in will be using ESPs. Okay, I shall see you in the next one, and thanks for watching.